Goodness gracious, great balls of fire. Hello then, my fellow sorcerers. Oh, Fireball is so hot right now. Seriously, you get new buffed Gloves the Illuminator, new buffed Staff of Endless Rage, and what do you even need me for? Slap them both on, cast away, have a great time! Okay, no, I am going to, of course, teach you the best way to fully push it to the extreme to get not just good results, not just great results, but a third adjective that's even more positive than that. So what's actually going on here? Well, yeah, the buffed Gloves of the Illuminator and Staff of Endless Rage. Basically, we now have a massively potent pair of items for fueling this fiery fun. Getting mana back when they explode from the gloves, and not having a damage penalty from using them to gain that bounce. The affixes accompanying it are great, alongside ranks of the skill, of course. Then the up to 100% guaranteed every cast is cast twice from the staff, on top of way more ranks, and the triple cast with a free 90% damage bump. There is a lot going on here, and you can really fuel it in some fun, interesting, and potent ways. Just look at the damage that is being pumped out already. All of these 3 to 7 million hits just all over the place. You will melt things. And this is not like a full masterworked out perfect rolls. No, I don't have ideal versions of a lot of the gear that I'm using here, nor do I have everything upgraded. So essentially, the sky is the limit, and that is super exciting. And talking of that sky limit, since making this video in the days between constructing it and it going up, I have actually had everything dropped to make the sort of perfect version of endgame Fireball, which is what you're currently seeing happening in the background, like full Mythic unique level. That's not the core one I'll be presenting, but in the gear section I will include the final form if you too do have access to all of the gear, so you can immediately upgrade it to that version of this build. But yeah, guys, Fireball is there. It is definitely in the top 3-ish builds that Sorcerer has access to this season, and it's just so much fun. This build that I've already thrown together, despite it not being perfect in terms of rolls, it's perfect in its construction. The synergy that is woven into the fireballs has meant that I am easily clearing tier 101 pits in 4 minutes straight away, if you exclude the 30 seconds I lot to for being randomly one-shot by a bone ballista, taking me all the way back to season 1. Then we have a tier 6 Infernal Hordes, also just comfortably cruise-controlled blasted through, no problem whatsoever. And hey, for all your tormented solo boss farming needs, I mean, look at the damage that this is doing to Duriel. Oh, and for a real nice little comparison, this is a 3-man scaled tormented Lord Zia, right? When I am just stood here, AFK, not contributing damage, you see how slowly his health is going down. And there is another Fireball Sorcerer in the group. But then as soon as I start attacking, alright, we're getting some movement in there, which just shows you that, A, how good Fireball can be, and it's not just slap on the staff and gloves and you're good to go. So, if you are sold for some ridiculous fiery fun, and I mean just aesthetically, the splashes of fire chaining out in front of you in an arc is so delicious. The fact that you can get the double cast while also getting the triple cast is hilarious, and honestly, it's just so powerful that you can't even see the fireball anymore. It's just the splashes on the ground because it's running so fast thanks to the speed increase affix, which actually really helps. It also solves its own mana problems for the most part thanks to the gloves, though it still does need a little bit help there that we'll go over. Essentially, if you like Fireball, Fireball is one of the best Sorcerer builds of the season, and its main big draw is it's so immediately powerful, fairly easy to throw together, and will have you farming essentially anything you need to farm full stop. Everything past this is almost in the realm of pushing already, which is crazy. So yeah, let's begin. Skill tree then, as always, is our first port of call. We want 2 points in to Firebolt, because as we all know, fireballs don't set people on fire unless we give them a little bit of help. So Firebolt enchantment is our first enchantment for that lovely burning and, most importantly, crit damage because of its synergy. Then we go on to our cause, where we max out your fireball, and then get your enhanced, and then finally destructive. We want to get 1 in devastation, then 3 into the dominance, as we do conquer mana fairly effectively, and most of our fireballs will be above 50, which then takes us to defensives. We don't need flame shield just generally. There is an argument for it if you're like pushing and need the survivability, but for the most part I found it's comfortable without, which is good because it lets us be even more powerful. We do of course take the ever faithful speedy teleport alongside enhanced and shimmering. Then we get full glass cannon to just get more damage. We are tanky enough to handle it. Ice armor, as it's lovely now with the synergies it provides, alongside enhanced and then shimmering. As we are churning out fireballs, spending mana, we will have a lot of uptime, which is great. 1 in attunement just so these 2 can reset, which does help us out. And then it takes us to Conjuration. The usual double defensive off a line, mana shield and protection fully maxed, and 3 out of 3 Conjuration Mastery, probably in contention for the best passive skill in the game. It is so good, so we want as many Conjurations powering up as possible in essentially most builds. Ice Blades then, all the way to Enhanced and then Summoned to help with our cooldown reduction, and indeed that does become our second enchantment slot. We want as many of these pressed as we can get, as many lightning spears, as many ice blades, and unstable currents with as much uptime as we can, and we'll get to why in a moment. Then we do get the lightning spear, get the enhanced for the double, and then finally invoked just to keep crowds on lockdown with the chain stunning. Over to your masteries, where we just get 3 out of 3 icy veil. Longer barriers is really nice, it's very comfortable. You don't need this, you could spend the points elsewhere, but I find it really adds a lot of quality of life, especially with ice armor already lasting 6 seconds, so this gives it a nice bump. I think you will find you agree when you play around with it. Then 3 out of 3 in Inner Flames for just more good 12% multiplicative fireball damage, and then Devouring Blaze for that all-important crit increase. Then we head over to the ultimates, where we get 1 in Fiery Surge, specifically 3 in Soulfire, as it's very juicy for fireball, and then max out your warmth, so you just passively infinitely heal from everything a ridiculous amount, and yeah, this thing is glorious. Technically, if you're ultra pushing in the realms where you're not quite ready, you don't have the defenses or the health and things are one-shotting you, then obviously this doesn't really do anything, but if you're just farming like tier 80 pits on repeat, this just lets you automatically brain off through it because nothing can kill you, and it really is so nice to have. So yeah, you can make that judgment accordingly. Then we grab ourselves Unstable Currents and then Prime. This is why we get it. We essentially treat Unstable Currents as, hey, every sort of 25 seconds is what the realistic cooldown will be with everything firing. We gain 25% attack speed for 10 seconds, and the more fireballs coming out of your fireball machine gun, the infinitely better it is. Then, as much as I would love to still take Vias, we can't ignore the power of Esu's Ferocity for both attack speed with the aspect and the raw damage and crit chance it provides. That then is your skill tree for this fireball. Now, with everything, once you're decked out in Mythic uniques and have perfect gear, you can push things to the limit and do things slightly differently, but for 99% of us mere mortals, this is the way to go. Gear then is up next, and I just love how many uniques this uses because it's a much less chance to get bricked at the old tempering stage, though we will start with the aspects as per usual. Actually, I just lied to your face. We're going to start with the gems. You want critical damage in your weapon, armor in your jewelry, and then in your armor, if you are finding yourself not dying, you don't feel squishy, you're all good in the content you're doing, you want yourself intelligence, But if you're finding that you're taking a little bit too much damage for your liking, then you do want percent maximum life from your rubies to both, well, give you more life, but also scale up your barriers. So, aspects then. We have ourselves Ancient Flame for that lovely 50% attack speed permanently on bosses, and let's be honest, permanently in most other places, because we're always triggering it from the kill on random trash. On your amulet very specifically, we want 3 curses. The meatiest of increases for Meteor and Fireball, that's 120% multiplicative crit damage against healthy bosses, which is ludicrous. This thing really is phenomenal. And then finally on your chest, we want Ever Living. Now technically you can do your Ice Armor one for the 25% damage reduction, but I don't like it because it makes you unstoppable for 5 seconds, which means you can't trigger Tybalt's Will for 5 seconds with Teleport if it's off cooldown. Your mileage may vary though. Ever Living is the safest, easiest. You can also take Casting Conjuration, gives you damage reduction too, but one of those 3 chiefly just want pure DR on your chest. Uniques then, Tal Rashes, as you might expect. The non-physical is delicious for our Paragon nodes, scaling ever higher now, and just the raw damage it provides is fantastic at this stage. And then we move on to Esu's Heirloom. This is a big crit build, so there's no better choice than, you know, the big crit boots. We want ourselves Tybalt's Will. The extra damage is nice, but mainly we just want that ability to essentially full up our mana in an emergency if we've got unlucky, we're a little bit in danger of getting too low with every teleport. Then we have ourselves Godslayer Crown. The extra cooldown reduction is lovely as a guarantee on it, but the pulling in and extra damage is really nice on the fireballs that are bouncing everywhere, stacking them up and splashing them down, and it gives that little extra kick to your boss damage, which is really appreciated in this setup. Then the 2 stars of the show, your Gloves of the Illuminator, and as a special note here, the most important thing you need is +2 mana, not +1. The build will feel kind of awful with +1, you'll run out of mana. It's only 1 more, but it makes that big of a difference. You need to get a +2 mana gloves. I have a +1 with a 0% roll, but I just can't use it versus this with 11% because you need that +2. Though, saying that, I did, just before sitting down to make this for you guys, actually get a drop of both a better gloves and better staff, so, you know, that's sod's law, isn't it? And talking of staff then, yes, your Staff of Endless Rage. Your most important affix here is to get the full max ranks of Fireball, and then everything else just as good as it happens to drop for you. Whack these on and you will be sitting pretty. When it comes to your affixes, there's only 3 gear slots that actually matter then. You want to get, ideally, critical strike chance and attack speed on your amulet and your ring. Then cooldown reduction is lovely. After that, health and generally critical strike damage and so on and so forth. Vulnerable damage, things that generally help like that, alongside intelligence, which is now ever good. Defensively, we want ourselves specifically a greater affix armor roll so that we can be armor capped without the helmet or gloves helping, so you might need to finagle that. If you can't get armor capped with just the chest, then you do want to wear a normal helmet with an armor affix roll, so you can be. It's very important. Other than that, intelligence and max life's absolutely fine, though I would prefer if the max life was mana per second. It would free up a little bit of the gear and let me get a bit more damage, so if you have that, then certainly do use it. Then we reach ourselves a little look at the old stats. We're sitting on 40% critical strike, which is really, really nice. Ideally, you want to be at about 55%, and then Esu's will do the rest of the work, but this is solid. Ludicrous amounts of critical strike damage, which is what you really want to see, and then you are well chuffed. I do also want to make a special note on attack speed, because we don't want to overcommit to it. With Loop of Ancient Flame active, we have 50%. I have an extra 12% here, which is 62, and then when stable currents activates, I get an extra 25, so 72, 82, 87%. If my ring also had attack speed, that would just about, with Masterworking, push it to that 100%, which is sort of the sweet spot you're aiming for. If you ever get above 100%, then you can drop unstable currents for something else, and also the attack speed on the gloves, because it's fireball specific, is a different bucket, so we don't have to worry about that clashing. It's just something to keep in mind. Here we are then, real quick for you, the full-on Mythic unique final version of this. And as you can see, we literally only have one normal aspect left with the 3 curses. So what changes is you replace your Ancient Flame ring with a Ring of Starless Skies, you replace your helmet with Shaco, your chest with Tyrael's Might, and that is, as they say, that you will be absolutely rocking. Everything else stays the same, and you are good to go. Next up then, let's actually talk about managing your mana and playing it. Just generally speaking then, against a normal enemy, you need to be able to just permanently cast Fireball and not run out of mana, as you can see here. This is really key, finding this balance, and it's something you might have to engineer for yourself, modify what I'm presenting here to make it happen for you. If I then put a boss out, which will trigger Ancient Flame and make me cast 50% faster, and therefore spend mana 50% faster, you'll see it gets a little bit more hectic. Yes, more fireballs means more mana coming back from the gloves, but we are casting very, very quickly, and you see here against bosses is why I've got Tibolts on, because that teleport to fully give our mana back is enough to make sure that we never run out, so that's all good. Then you have unstable currents on top of it, which is even more attack speed, and that's when you really have to pick your moment and, you know, go all out just this once and burn everything. So in order to do that, you just need the right amount of resource gen. For me, a +2 mana roll, and if you get the 25% on the Masterwork to +3, then you're laughing, but for me, a +2 mana roll to bolts, and then a single resource gen temper is the sweet spot. There's also a glyph helping, and that's made it just right. If you are still struggling with mana, then you want a second resource gen temper on your amulet, and then that will help you out a lot. Other than that, just generally playing the build, I mean, it's what you might expect. Use your Ice Blades and your Lightning Spear on cooldown, teleport as you need it for either mana or dodging, Ice Armor as you need it to survive, and then Unstable Currents whenever you're on a boss or a nasty pack of elites, and then you just kind of roll on like that. Of course, having my Conjurations rolling means I do have even more mana regen from Conjuration Mastery, so even now I'm completely fine once more, and that's also something to factor in, and then, yeah, you're absolutely golden. With how wide this goes and how much it spreads and bounces, in Infernal Hordes especially, you can just sit here and kind of do this in every direction, and you'll sort of just kill everything automatically. It really does feel great to play. For your tempering needs then, on your ring, you want to have critical strike damage, and then either resource gen if you need it to keep on top of your mana, if not, unstable currents cooldown reduction. The same on your amulet, critical strike damage, and then either resource gen or unstable currents cooldown reduction. On your chest, you want very specifically chance to freeze, immobilize, or stun, and then ranks to warmth, and that's kind of it. Again, I love having such a unique heavy build. When you are looking at Masterworking, important ones to hit of relevance is ranks to Fireball, and then again ranks to Fireball and the mana per Fireball explosion. Paragon, then let's do this thing. Follow me point for point, board for board, and we are off. We no longer need the likes of resilience and such, because we have a bajillion intelligence now, so we're essentially automatically res capped for being a sorcerer, but of course make sure you are actually res capped. Head up to the right, through Elementalist, straight to the glyph, which is reinforced, grab the willpower to make it happen, along with Erudite, and then head up through Elemental Balance, into Enchantment Master. Arrange with the glyph in the bottom right, initially going going left to get Elementalist for the non-physical and the max health, then right through the Intelligence down to another Elemental Balance, then to the Glyph slot where we have Elementalist. Get yourself Erudite too, and then head on out into the next board, which is going to be your Burning Instinct board. Straight down to the Glyph slot and Cinders. In here, Destruction finds its usual home. Also make sure to grab Smoldering Embers and the extra decks, and then we want to head right, getting a bit of decks along the way, to the center with Kindling. Then we go straight up from Kindling, branch out to get Safeguard for the extra little bit of damage reduction, and then all the way out the top into our next board, which is your Frigid Fate. Arrange it so that the Oppressive node is in the bottom right, and then we go straight up to this magic node here, and then right through this Intelligence to this Glyph, where we find Unleash. Now, my Unleash isn't level 15 yet, so if it was and had the bigger radius, I could get rid of this here and save a point, because it would reach this Intelligence here, so that's something to take note of. But this is the last little bit of extra mana regen that I found very useful for making sure you don't run out while spamming Fireball. And hey, 8% multiplicative free damage on everything isn't bad either, so it's a nice little glyph to finish it off. However, if you have yourselves enough mana without Unleash, then of course feel free to put in a different damaging glyph. So then we want to head left through Weakness and then up and round to Frigid Fate. We are missing 8% multiplicative of it that will eventually get through more non-physical damage as we upgrade our Tal Rash's ring and so on, so that'll sort itself out. Then we want to ignore the left part of this for now. We can more firstly going right to here, this Dex, drop down for Oppressive, and then we want to continue on into Searing Heat. Straight down to the Glyph initially, take this path, this is where we find Exploit, and then out through this Dex all the way up to Combustion. We might as well get it on the way, continuing up and then getting the Legendary node with its lovely 60% multiplicative maxed out now. Then we want to head right from Flame Touch below the Glyph, and then down here into essentially just a Glyph, but it is the Static Surge board. Arranged like this, down through the left, getting all of the decks, and Incapacitate because we might as well, and this is where we put Tactician for that extra 10% multiplicative. Then we want to finally finish off going left from here, getting guarded on the way into our final board, which is going to be your Elemental Summoner. Heading down and left, so we get these two dexes, we want ourselves Flame Feeder, and we go through Conjurer to get the final bit of tech dex to make it happen, and then lastly this one here. That then is your Paragon board, all done, 7 glyphs nicely slotted up for us, and a lot of power to be gained. That then is that, the new improved Season 5 buffed Fireball taken to its maximum with the likes of using Unstable Currents as an attack speed button, and it really gets the job done and then some. It just works really well, it's really powerful, it's fun to play, you don't have to get crazy gear or crazy rolls to make it sing, and I hope you very much enjoy it. It's such a good build to instantly start farming the sweet spot optimum tier 101 pit and tier 6 Infernal Hordes to then unlock anything else you want to be unlocking. The next build I'll be showing with you is going to be what I believe to be probably just our best build of the season full stop, if you could just summon any gear you wanted into your inventory, so we'll see how that treats me, and we'll see what my theory of crafting actually settles on, but make no mistake, we have so many good competitive builds to choose from, and I can't wait to bring you literally all of them. So for now, like if you enjoyed this, subscribe and hit the bell for more, consider supporting the future of the channel on Patreon down below, and until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.